Hello and welcome to Perspectives on Neurodiversity. I am your host, Christopher Scott Wyatt, speaking as the Autistic Me, and today I'm being joined by David Villec. Dave is the father of Tiger, a 10-year-old autistic savant with special skills in the arts. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk a little bit about Tiger's talent.
Okay. Because
you have created a YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok to show off what Tiger can do. So what makes it special?
What makes it special? Well, I mean, aside from being really young and being able to draw like this, okay?
We're looking at a Disney caricature of Daisy Duck.
Daisy Duck.
And it looks like it was done by a Disney animator.
Right. But Tiger drew it upside down.
Upside down.
Drew it upside down. And he did that last year.
When he was 9.
When he was 9. And he's only had a few lessons in art, minimal, primarily self-taught. And then he started doing more complex things. Like this is a Mickey Mouse face-off drawing he did last July. It's got 4 million views on Instagram. And then in October, a Disney caricature artist asked him to draw a caricature. So this is his first ever caricature.
And it is very clearly Mick Jagger with the large mouth, the lips. That is definitely Mick Jagger. And this is amazing. He is amazingly talented.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just a couple weeks ago, he started painting.
And we are looking at now, I'm not good with the Nintendo stuff. Is that a Pikachu? Is that what you call that?
It is. This is Pikachu. It's eating an apple.
It's amazing. It is. When you look at this, it is a nice bright yellow, blue background, and it's done just like you would see for animation. And he just started painting, you said?
Couple weeks ago,
and he's already producing that.
This was his third painting ever. This is Stitch.
And again, it is just phenomenal.
He had been painting for 3 days when he did this.
And if you're interested in that, you can go to Instagram and look at Tiger Villec. Villec, and that's just Tiger, Tiger Villec on Instagram, The Autistic Tiger on Facebook, and at The Autistic Tiger on TikTok. There's also a link tree that I'll put in the show notes that gives all of the links to Tiger's social media.
Yeah, if you go to the link tree at theautistictiger.com, it's got all the links.
When was Tiger diagnosed autistic?
When he was 18 months.
And what led you to seek out that diagnosis at such a young age?
You know, since Tiger was 3 months old, he would hyper focus on his cartoons and just tune out everything. And we suspected he could be autistic. You know, he was language delayed. He didn't know his name. He wouldn't respond to it. He'd kind of go off in his own little world. And then one day my mom came over and she said, he's flapping his arms. I said, and they said, well, that's a sign of autism. And then she introduced us to a lot of this stimming that he was doing. He would spin in circles for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And he would stomp his feet, shake his head. So we asked the pediatrician to get him tested, and she sent him to the regional center. We were in Eureka, California, and they gave him his preliminary diagnosis.
At 18 months?
Yes.
And now that he is 10, does he receive special supports for his autistic traits?
At school, he gets speech and language therapy. He does not get any therapy outside of school, and it's because we don't have medical insurance. That's the only reason.
And the speech and language delays, are they still existent? He's still...
Yes. He's very limited verbal. I mean, he can talk, but will he talk? He's very difficult to have a conversation with. He's a bad historian. He gets confused easily if you ask him questions, but he knows information. And if you see him on YouTube or on the internet, I mean, you would think there was not much of a communication problem at all. But verbally, yeah, it's very limited.
His artwork is, as I've already said, it's amazing. It's professional level artwork. Does he do original works, or is most of it work where he's seeing something and copying it? Because one of the assumptions about autistic savants are that they copy, but they don't create. Does he create?
Yeah. We get that a lot from people, Disney artists, professional artists say, well, Tiger needs to create his own character. But I mean, Chris, you've got Tiger's plushie right behind you.
I do have a Tiger plushie. And for those interested, again, I'll have some information in the show notes. My girls have Tiger plushies, and that is one of his own designs. It's a little orange tiger for the Autistic Tiger logo.
Yeah.
You can see that on the Facebook page really well.
Yeah. So, if your name is Tiger, and you draw Tiger. So he's been drawing the Autistic Tiger since he's 6 years old. And after New York Comic Con this year, we focused on him doing original character drawings. So this is the Autistic Tiger wearing a tiger costume,
complete with the tail done in the spring.
Yeah. And this is the Autistic Tiger Spider-Man. Let me get the glare off of it.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is absolutely gorgeous.
And let me show you one more. This is the Autistic Tiger and the Autistic Lion on Slinky Dog Dash at Hollywood Studios. And we'd like to do some books with some of these drawings that he's been doing.
The challenge, because you mentioned you don't have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You're a stay-at-home dad.
Yes.
I'm also a stay-at-home dad working with my special needs children.
Uh-huh.
What kind of pressure has that put on your family?
Well, I mean, obviously financial issues are big. We have, I'm 55. It's not like I'm 22 and I'm just starting out, and I've got 55-year-old man bills. When you don't have an income, it's really, really hard. We think about when we spend money, like, do we really need to spend it? But at the same time, your overhead is so high. It's kind of a ridiculous position to be in. I don't know if I answer that well, but that's really a tough one on us. And then there's the normal stressors of having Tiger. We want to communicate with him, and we want to have him improve on so many levels. And it's frustrating because you might make progress one day, and then the next week, he regresses because he's forgotten, or he knows, but he just doesn't recall. And it can lead to frustration. And even with his art, we try to direct him as best we can. We're not artists, but it's frustrating when even the most simplest of concepts just kind of seem foreign to him, yet he'll do something very advanced without any prompting.
The challenge for those of us who have special children, challenged children, or whatever you want to call it, and I struggle with what to even call my daughters. They're my daughters. Calling them disabled isn't quite, they're not really disabled, and they're special because they're my daughters. And, I don't know how we do the label thing well, but my daughters do need supports. Mm-hmm. Without insurance, it would be impossible for our family, and you're in a situation where you don't have that extra insurance. Does Tiger receive some of the state supports that are common for disabled children?
Well, we're in Florida, and things are a little bit different here than they would be in California. In California, a child like Tiger would be institutionally deemed for Medicare, Medi-Cal. But in Florida, that's not the case. So one of the things we would like to change on a national level is that every state has to have a minimum standard. It can't be zero. Minimum standard that these kids have to be given for services. So we would prefer if Tiger was institutionally deemed for Medicaid here in Florida, but he's not.
That's astonishing, because we live in Texas, and our daughters, we do have stipends that cover the therapies and the additional supports. Mm-hmm. Without those, it would be impossible to meet all of their needs. It just would be.
Yeah.
So many of the families that I've talked to on this podcast or for the blog don't have the resources they need. And you're saying Florida does not provide those extra resources. No,
I mean, in the news, they always say, there's no state income tax in Florida, but there's a trade-off. They do have a program here in Florida for education where you can get a $10,000 grant, but we would have to take him out of public school. So if we homeschool him, we'll get $10,000, and we could put that towards whatever we want. If we wanted to send him to a private school or homeschool him and use it for services, we could. But then again, you're having to make a choice. Do I want my child to go to school or not? It's a really difficult position to be putting parents in to make these type of choices.
I just interviewed Mark Lyons, whose son Sam has Sammy's Socks, etc. And there'll be a podcast. It's the podcast, I believe, right before this one. Samuel is now in his 20s.
Okay.
Do you have concerns about what will happen as Tiger gets older?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why we moved down here to Florida. We were up in New Jersey, and during COVID at his school, they were teaching the regular kids 5 hours a day, 5 days a week on distance learning. But in Tiger's class, it was only 20 minutes twice a week, and that's it. That was a bad deal. So we looked where in the country can he go to school. And my wife voted for Orlando, which means I got outvoted 2-1. And we thought Orlando would be best for Tiger for a number of reasons. One, there's a lot of art schools here. And two, we're next to Disney World. And we thought when he grows up, he could get a job with Disney because they hire a lot of disabled workers to work at the parks. And believe me, if Tiger swept the streets at Disney World, I mean, he'd be so happy to work for Disney. I mean, he's really a Disney kid. So we've been thinking about what's going to happen to him when he grows up. You know, what's going to happen when he's 18. We don't want him to be in an institution. Now, we knew he could draw, but not like this. I mean, he was really good when we moved down here, but within 6 months, he's on TV drawing Mickey Mouse. And then, you know, a few months after that, he went to MegaCon, which that was our first Comic-Con, and it's huge. It's not like, you know, go to the neighborhood Comic-Con. This is, you know, the big boys. And in the past year, he's just gotten so much better so that we kind of changed what our expectations were. We initially wanted him to be able to get a job as an adult, as an artist. And we think that that's probably going to happen. Now it's a matter of how popular is he going to get? How popular is his character going to get? How much more attention is he going to get? Because, you know, he has this unbelievable talent. He's got his own IP. You know, the sky's the limit for him. But at the same time, I'm not working. Money's really tight. We get a lot of comments online that you were exploiting our kid for money. And I thought, wow, somebody please show me where the money is. They don't realize the economics of going to New York Comic Con or something like that. He should do very well as an artist as he grows older. I mean, he's only 10. He just started painting. I don't know how he does it. I don't know where it comes from. I'm just in awe every time I see him do something new. Incredible.
You yourself have an ASD diagnosis.
Yes.
Were you diagnosed before or after Tiger?
Before. Yeah.
So you knew that you had some autistic traits before Tiger.
Well, my mom told me many, many years ago that I had all the traits of Asperger's. You know, she called it the engineer disease. And I got a chemical engineering degree and a law degree. So now guilty as charged. When
did you get the diagnosis?
Diagnosis from a psychiatrist. I was 42, so 13 years ago.
Did that change your understanding of yourself, knowing at 42 that you were autistic?
I mean, I'd already grown up. I'd already experienced life. I mean, getting a diagnosis at that point really doesn't change anything for you. You know, maybe it would have helped me when I was in high school. You know, my brother's friends, I would always ask him, well, why is David so serious all the time? And my question would be, why aren't you serious all the time?
Do you think it changes how you parent?
I mean, on one hand, you could be more understanding, but on the other hand, I'm not always the nicest person. I know I have a difficulty in dealing with people. I've always had a difficulty in dealing with people, and I have my triggers, like Tiger has his triggers. And sometimes it's hard to just push that all down.
I find that being an autistic parent is difficult. As you said, that we each have our triggers. Mine, I'm very sensitive to input, loud noise, flashing lights, crowds, don't like those things. And yet the girls love SeaWorld and they love the zoo. So how do you handle situations like Disney or the other theme parks? How do you navigate those? The Comic-Con it's got to be like a zoo.
It's a zoo. And how I deal with it, and we got to talk about Tiger too, but how I deal with it is I just try to go with the flow. I expect people to do what they're supposed to do. I expect Disney to do what they're supposed to do. I expect people to behave a certain way. When things veer from that path, that's when I personally have issues. And personally, I have those issues with, for instance, how Disney treats Tiger. Okay. If I see them mistreating Tiger, then I have a big problem. And as far as Tiger going to Comic-Cons and stuff like that, he loves it. I mean, oh my God, he loves it. He calls them the Autistic Tiger show. He would do one every day if he could. He knows it's for him. He knows it's his show. And he is, can be a prima donna. He doesn't talk much when he's there. He doesn't interact with people. But man, he knows it's his show. and he'll draw, and the cameras, the people, he just loves it. He loves being on TV. He loves going to TV studios. He loves going to Disney World. Doesn't bother him a bit.
You said he doesn't have severe behavior issues.
No.
And that he receives the speech and language, but not behavioral supports.
Right.
So what calms him down and keeps him focused? If he can stim in a circle for 20 minutes, what does he do for regulation?
Tiger draws. Now, Tiger has never had art therapy, but we are the biggest cheerleaders for art therapy because we know what happened to Tiger. Before he started drawing, he would have meltdowns that would last hours, could last all night. And it wasn't until he was 3 that I could pick him up without him screaming for 2 hours. And since he started drawing, he just focused all of his attention and everything on drawing, and he calmed down, severely calmed down. And now, even things that would have easily sent him off might not get a reaction from him. He still has some things that can really, set him off, but most things just really don't register with him.
So how do you go about promoting Tiger's talent?
It's hard because I don't have a background in that. I'm not a PR person. I'm not, I did take communication classes. I don't know anything about the TV, radio industry, internet. I mean, I first got exposed to the internet when it started, but all this new stuff, Instagram and TikTok, whatnot. I had to create accounts for these platforms. All I can say is I try. And I try to do my best. When we were at New York Comic Con, we see a big line of people waiting to get inside the show. It's really cold because it's October. And I see a couple TV trucks outside. So what do? I run over there to the TV trucks and I start talking to them. And a couple of days later, ABC News sent over a crew, filmed Tiger, and did a national story on him. He would live next to Disney. So I get to know all the vloggers who do Disney. Whenever I see somebody wandering around a Comic-Con with a camera, I say, hey, come over here, film Tiger. That's certainly helped out. I've called TV stations and radio stations, and every city we go to, we created some challenges. We have the Autistic Tiger Art Challenge. We ask people to draw the Autistic Tiger. We have the Selfie Challenge, where we ask people to take a selfie with the Autistic Tiger plushie. We had Tiger start drawing on exotic cars. We filmed that, and he learned how to play rock, paper, scissors recently. So now we play rock, paper, scissors with characters at the Comic-Cons and stuff like that. We're trying to do things that'll, generate a buzz. We have him draw at Disney World. We've had him draw on the rides. We've given away his art at Disney World. Disney knows this really well. We did reaction videos with 86 of the Disney artists during Epcot Festival of the Arts. We try to do as many events as practicable. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be at the Philadelphia Eagles, and Tiger's going to be the entertainment for a very intimate event with the owner and about 100 other people. And we hope to get invited to other events like that. I'm just trying. I don't know what the best way is, but I'm doing my best.
And how do you respond when people say you're exploiting his talent?
It hurts. I really feel like people, they're punching down on Tiger. And we've noticed this for a very long time. A couple of years ago, there was a scandal at a school and Tiger was involved. And a lot of the parents in Celebration started disliking his videos on YouTube. And YouTube called it a targeted dislike attack. And it really hurt. When he blew up on Instagram, that was like February, March. He went from 2,000 followers to 57,000 within a few weeks. And then it was just a flood of, there's tons of positive feedback. Believe me, there's tons of positive feedback, but it's the negative ones that hurt. And when people say that, it just really, it's painful because one, they don't know us. They don't know Tiger. They don't understand the economics of going to New York Comic Con. Are they trying to say that Tiger should go to New York Comic Con, pay for a booth, pay for travel, pay for hotel, food, everything, but not get paid for the art that everybody else is getting paid for? That doesn't seem the right way to go about things. It's not like we get free booths. Another gentleman told me he's a professional poker player, and he said, the money is how we keep score. And it's how you keep score with art. If we gave away art to everybody for free, people wouldn't appreciate it. So there has to be a price applied to it. Tiger's work has to be worth something. His intellectual property has to be worth something. If Tiger ends up being a millionaire, he's going to be the millionaire, not me. I just, I'm selling everything I own to give him a future. And whatever that ends up being for him, that's his. Because it doesn't matter what I have when I move on. What it matters is what's Tiger going to have. We do get some negative feedback from people who don't like us calling ourselves the Autistic Tiger. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but they think that it's putting a label on Tiger, calling him autistic. How could you call your son autistic? And I'm like, well, he is autistic and his name is Tiger. So I mean, you're the autistic me. I don't have an issue with that. But they don't like we use a puzzle piece because Autism Speaks uses a puzzle piece. Well, Tiger had his T-shirts at Walmart recently, and that was a project we did with Autism Speaks. At MegaCon recently, we had an autistic young man, probably about 25, 30, and he came to me as a man. I give him all the credit in the world. He came to me, and he's with his parents, and he told me that he didn't like the puzzle piece, and he didn't like us being called the Autistic Tiger. And I told him, that's too bad. And I don't care. Because if I did care, it would just tear me apart. We are the Autistic Tiger. And if people don't like that, I'm sorry. I mean, that's too bad. My son loves being the Autistic Tiger. I don't even think he really understands that he's different. He loves his character. He loves drawing. He loves the Comic Cons. He loves all this stuff. There's a lot of people in this world who don't know Tiger and want to pass judgment on him, on us, and it's really unfair. And they don't pass judgment on the people who partner with Tiger. Disney's had Tiger in Disney Files magazine. Why don't they attack Disney? Or he's sponsored by Expo and Sharpie, and his shirts were in Walmart. Roosevelt sponsors Tiger, and Liquitex is going to sponsor him. But you don't go to those companies and complain. You punch down on a 10-year-old kid, which I just think is unfair.
And you made an important point there with the money that he does earn would be his.
Yeah.
That you're not trying to profit off of him. You're trying to secure a future for Tiger.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I want him to have a future. If we were able to get a house for Tiger and a car and find some job that he could do, have something he could do every day when he grows up. I mean, that's really the goal. But as with any intellectual property, you can't control how popular something is. So if his character becomes really popular, and Disney wants to buy the character, I can't say, well, Tiger only needs $2 million. I mean, the character will be worth whatever it is. And we have no idea if that would ever happen, but we see the potential. So that when the Disney artists and the other artists come and say Tiger needs to create his own characters, he has his own characters, and that's him.
Many of the interviews that I have featured on the podcast are parents who have started businesses with or for their children. It might be Sammy Socks. It could be one of the coffee businesses, coffee shops, and baking are common. Parents create these businesses because we know our children may not fit into the normal workplace. I certainly have to look back on my experiences and say, I don't fit into a normal workplace. So I think there is an understanding that what you're doing is an accommodation for Tiger.
Yeah. I mean, we want him to have a future. He loves to draw. He loves art. And if he can make a living at it when he grows up, great. But right now, Tiger's skill level puts him on a professional level. So we compete with the professionals, and he goes to New York Comic Con. He's not competing against 10-year-old kids. He's competing against professional artists. And if he succeeds, it'll be because of him.
You said you are using your energy to help change policy in Florida.
We would love to change policy nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
Because of the financial strain that these situations put on families, and you're involved in Tiger's life day after day. But like I said, you and I are both stay-at-home dads, and we are both of the same generation. We graduated. I graduated USC in 1990. What year did you graduate?
1990.
Oh, we're both USC 1990.
Yeah, but you only took 3 years.
That's Southern California, for those wondering. It's not South Carolina. Just clarify that.
The real USC.
Oh, there you go. So we both entered the workforce at the same time, and we have been through the recessions and everything else. But I find that it's my autistic traits that are often the biggest barrier to following a traditional career path. Did you have that same experience?
I mean, I got a chemical engineering degree, and I didn't realize, going to school in LA, I was going to have to work in Texas. I went to work in Houston for 6 years, and I decided I didn't like Texas. I didn't like Houston. And I wanted to go anywhere. And when my company wouldn't send me out on a job assignment, I just quit, which shocked everybody.
That's a very autistic impulse. Yeah.
I'd say, well, I can go anywhere. So, I moved to Vegas and I played blackjack for 6 months. And then I worked in California for various companies. And then I came to the realization, I can get a job in Texas much better. And I went to work for them. And my mom had a law degree. And I figured, well, she had a law degree. It can't be that hard. So I went to law school at SMU and got my law degree. When I graduated law school, I didn't care how much money I made. The kids graduating law school at the time were starting at like $130,000 a year. I got $4,000 a month. And I worked with my mom in Eureka, California at a Social Security disability firm. All I cared is that my bills are paid. And that's all I care right now. Are we able to pay our bills? That would make me so proud to be able to provide for my family. I don't need to live a fancy life. I don't need a Ferrari. I don't need any of that stuff. I just need to be able to pay the bills. And maybe that's not how most people think of it. When I look at my bank account, I don't see money. I see time. How much time is in my bank? When I ran the law office, it was the same deal. How much time is in the bank? And dealing with people at work, it's really hard because people don't quite understand you. They don't understand that you might stay at work until 10 o'clock at night, even if you're not working, because you don't have anything else to do. I got really good at free cell. That is back when people didn't have home computers. They don't understand when, you can just pick up and go anywhere at any time. I've traveled many, many places, and I would just say, send me. I don't care. Wherever it is, I'll go. And I didn't have those really close connections to people. I didn't have very close connections to my family. And right now, those connections are pretty much non-existent. It's been easy for me just to get up and go. And I know a lot of people say that's so hard. You can't just move. Yeah, you can. We left California when the economic situation made running our law office impractical. So we moved where we thought we could get a lot of clients. That was between New York and Philadelphia. And that didn't work out. So we moved to New Jersey Shore. And then during COVID, we just picked up and moved to Florida. We'd only been here a couple times to Disney World. We didn't know much about it. But, I wish I'd have come here 5 years ago.
I find that I worry a lot about my daughters and work because of the social skills and because of the way I have reacted in toxic work environments. When a workplace has become unpleasant, I tender my resignation and off I go.
Oh, no, I've never heard that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they can become toxic and abusive very quickly if you're not social. And so I do worry about my daughters and how will they develop social skills and connections that I don't have. I'm at home alone. I'll be alone for a week or so. The girls are back in California with family for Memorial Day weekend. And I probably won't go anywhere or do anything. I will sit here at home and work on my stuff I will be doing the podcast. I will be doing the blogs and that stuff, but I'm not going to go out to dinner or go to a movie or any of those things where there might be people. I'm going to just stay in my comfortable house. And that makes it really hard because our culture is based on social connections. Jobs are based on who you know, not what you know.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty good with a computer. Doesn't matter if I can't tell anyone or talk to anyone about it, but I'm very comfortable at home alone. So do you worry about Tiger developing the same personality traits that have been a challenge for you?
Well, Tiger's a lot calmer than I am. That's for sure. Tiger has an extreme language deficiency. So he cannot have a conversation with people. When they gave him his last PhD evaluation, they observed him at lunch eating, and then he got up, walked over where there were some kids, and stood next to them for about a minute, and then turned around, walked back to where he was sitting and sat down and kept eating lunch. So he wanted to connect with people. He wanted, he doesn't have any friends. I'm sure he would like to have a friend. He doesn't know how to have a friend. He doesn't know how to make that connection with people. And so if his verbal ability, his language ability does not increase dramatically, he will not be able to have a job that's not in a sheltered environment. A sheltered environment means you might have a job coach, or, it's not a competitive job, like your parent gets you the job or something like that through an agency. That's the only way I could see him getting a job right now, even working for Disney. If he doesn't talk a little bit more, I don't even know how they could hire him to be a greeter or something. His artistic talent and his ability is really the big question for us. Is he going to be able to make a living with his art on his own when he's an adult?
The focus that makes the art possible, the obsession with art that makes it what it is. He's so talented because he's persistent.
I mean, that's his talent. It's hyper-focus and hard work. And I'm looking at a guy right now who I know possesses those two traits as well. I've seen it firsthand.
Thank you.
I mean, your listeners don't know, but back in the day, this man you're looking at wrote the cart stunt program for USC in one night. And the cart stunts are the color pictures they make at the stands of the college football games. And one night he wrote that, and it wasn't his job. It was my job. But I knew Chris, and we sat down one night and he wrote the program, and I was in awe. Still am.
And while I'm good with computers, I'm lousy at networking.
Well, it's a good thing we didn't need the network.
You're right. You mentioned that Tiger can be hyper-focused. Does he hyper-focus on anything other than art?
Well, I mean, he uses the iPad a lot, and he's very private about what he's doing on the iPad. I mean, even if he's watching cartoons, we believe that he's studying these cartoons. And that's just because he did it his whole life, and then all of a sudden he starts drawing, He makes videos. He does other sketches on the iPad with his finger and whatnot. He focuses on art projects. He might make out of construction paper and stuff like that at his desk. Anything he does, I really feel that he's focused on it. But that said, I mean, he can keep track of a few things on the periphery and focus on what he's doing. He can choose to tune things out or not. When he was younger, about 3-4 years old, a PhD psychologist at his school called me up and said he was having petit mal seizures. And I said, oh, no, he's not. And they said, well, he's staring off into space. He's not responding. We're waving our hands in his face and calling his name. I said, he's ignoring you. And they said, how do you know? I said, well, you haven't said the magic word. And they said, well, what's that? I said, where's mommy? And they said that, and he snapped out of it. So he can focus pretty much whenever he wants. But when it comes to art, I mean, he wants to do a good job. He wants to do something that will be, important. He wants to be the best. He's extremely competitive, hates losing, extremely competitive. And he gives it everything that he has. Sometimes we wish he would be a little more relaxed and maybe work a little more efficiently. But, you can't rush genius, I guess.
Does he communicate in other ways than the spoken word? Does he write or draw what he wants? Does he use any assisted communication technologies or adaptations?
I mean, we've been given the assistive communication device, and he wouldn't use it. I mean, he can communicate what's on the device without the device. If he needs something, he's very self-sufficient. He just goes and gets it, unless, he knows he has to ask for it. So if he has a need, he'll ask us for something. The other day, he wrote down on a piece of paper, I want to buy a big house, and gave it to me. And it's like, I want to get it framed. It just melted my heart when he wrote this. That's not typical for him to write notes to people, but he can. he's good about telling us verbally what he wants or fulfilling his own needs. But outside of that, he doesn't have communication, spontaneous communication, like just to talk to people. He doesn't do that.
If I might ask it, is Tiger an only child?
He actually has an older brother who's not in the home right now. He went to visit family in China right before COVID, and he's been stuck there ever since. So I'm sure Tiger hasn't forgotten his brother, but he doesn't talk about him.
Wow. So the brother went to China before COVID and got stuck there?
Yeah.
COVID was a nightmare for most families, but that's unbelievable that his brother is overseas.
I couldn't predict it. Sorry.
Oh, understood. So when his brother was present, were they close, or they're not close in age? Or
They're 3 years apart. Tiger's not really close with people, but in Tiger's way, he was close to his brother Miko. I remember when they were very small, they were at the Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, and Tiger walked over where Miko was sitting down and laid down on top of him. And I thought, wow, this is huge, because Tiger doesn't interact with people. Tiger would want to play with Miko or interact with him. And I don't know that Miko really understood how to play with his brother, and it caused a lot of issues.
I sometimes feel very fortunate that the girls are sisters. They're 14, 15 months apart. And so they have one built-in social connection, but they don't really know, as you said, they don't know how to make friends. They don't know how to make those connections. Even now at 11 and 9, they just don't know. They will walk up to other children and want to be in the group, but they can't signal it, or they can't say it or something. So they're with the other children, but they're not with them socially. And you said that's what you observe with Tiger.
Whenever he is in social situations with other kids, we turn into anthropologists, I guess. We want to see what's going to happen. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But we want him to have those interactions. We want him to learn how to get along with other kids. It's why he goes to public school. The other day he had a really bad interaction, and, the school calls me up, and I'm like, if he hurt, or because if he's not, to me, kids are going to fight. Kids are going to, have disagreements or whatnot. And it's part of growing up, is learning how to deal with that. And for Tiger, it's even more important that he has to learn how to get along with other kids, because he can't just, if he isolates himself, I don't know what his life is going to be like. He's going to have somebody in his life. If it's not me and his mom, it's going to have to be somebody. So who's that person going to be?
And that's a really important question, because even as an artist, he's going to need help marketing the art, selling the art.
Yeah.
And you have to have a support network to make those things happen. Even if you're very talented as a musician or a visual artist, you can't do it on your own. Well, right now you are his marketing and public relations. So as we wind down, I do want to again say that if you want to learn more about the Autistic Tiger, you can go to Facebook /the Autistic Tiger / you can also look for Tiger Villec. That's VILLEC on Instagram, at the Autistic Tiger on TikTok. And there is also a link tree. And how can listeners get to the link tree?
It's theautistictiger.com.
And that'll take them to the link tree.
Yeah. And his Facebook actually isn't the Autistic Tiger. That used to be. So it's still the Autistic Tiger, but it's not the / the Autistic Tiger. They're trying to get that fixed. So he's got about 2,000 followers on Facebook, and we just started that a month ago. So he's got 2,000 already.
And you said one of his pictures, the Mickey Mouse face-off picture, had 57,000 likes.
This picture has 4.4 million views.
Oh my gosh, 4.4 million. It is a Mickey Mouse with the face popping off like a mask.
And he's got 57,000 followers on Instagram, which is an outrageous number for a little kid. We always wanted success for Tiger, but we never thought this would happen. We toiled for the longest time. And last year, October, at New York Comic Con, he only had 800 followers on Instagram. And I think when we started doing the reaction videos with the Disney artist, that really started to pick up some momentum. And then this drawing that he had actually done a year before took off on Instagram, and then everybody started messaging me, calling me. It became overwhelming, the amount of requests that were made of Tiger. Now, I hope they don't stop, but we don't have a publicist, we don't have a manager. It's just me and his mom. And hopefully we'll have a real website soon, a Shopify store. It would certainly help him out.
I will be sure to include all of those links in the show notes. I hope listeners have enjoyed learning about the autistic tiger, Tiger Villec, and I am really pleased that his father, Dave, was able to join us on Perspectives on Neurodiversity. Dave, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.